All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We will start the Goodhue County meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. We will start with disclosures of interest. Any disclosures from the board? We will review and approve the previous board meeting minutes.
Move approval, Anderson.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Review the agenda. Any changes?
There are no changes, Chair.
Agenda.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Consent item. We have 3 items on our consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Reports from our departments and officials. Land use management. Good morning, Sam.
Morning. All right. Today, we have on the agenda the public hearing for the cannabis ordinance for Goodhue County. Staff from administration, the attorney's office, finance, taxpayer services, health and human services, land use, and the sheriff's office have met regularly to discuss and draft this proposed ordinance. It's been drafted in compliance with Minnesota statutes chapter 342 and with guidance from the Office of Cannabis Management. This public hearing was properly noticed, and attached to the report here is also the draft of fees proposed and the draft application. The fees would be coming to you as a body in December when we do the fee schedule as normal. So I would request opening the public hearing, hearing public comments, and approving the Goodhue County Cannabis Ordinance as written.
Motion to open public hearing.
Can I ask just a couple comments first? One, just if we approve the ordinance, we're not approving the fees. They will come, like you said, separate. And then you and I sat down and we talked through this ordinance, and it's pretty much we have to follow the state statute. So the distances, all the different regulations we're putting in there are almost identical to what's in state statute.
Right, for example, the buffers from schools and things it's the maximum allowed by state statute is what we have put in there.
And as we talk through most of the other issues, it's really, we're gonna look at this as today's ordinance, but as the cannabis work group or the Office of Cannabis Management comes up with their final rules, it may have to come back and we may have to look at something different in it, possibly.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted those things out there before we went to public comment. I will move to open the
Public hearing.
public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, the meeting is open. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this issue? Yep, come on up to the mic. Please state your address and your name and your address, and we'll give you 3 minutes to start. If we need more later, we can.
Me okay?
Pull it closer. Here we go.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Good.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that better?
It's like a singer now.
All right. Jeffrey Zimmer, 31320 Hill Avenue, Red Wing, Minnesota. Uncle Sam's Hemp is a company that I own. Question for you guys. 12,500 dispensaries in the U.S. How many are municipally owned? That's a question.
I don't-
For anybody. Anybody have any idea?
No.
I don't think any are.
I think there's one. I think there's one left. So I'm here today to plant the seed. You guys want to do a dispensary, you want to get into this business, why not do a testing facility? There's only 5 laboratories. Out of 50 licenses, only 5 applications for laboratories. The highest paying jobs in the cannabis industry is laboratories. Red Wing could partner up with the natives, the tribe. I think it's a great idea. The tribal nation should own this business. The social equity in the tribal nation should own cannabis for the injustices that have been done in this country in the last 40 years. And I've seen it. I've been incarcerated 3 years for it. I've seen African Americans discriminated against. I've seen veterans discriminated against. There's homeless veterans that need cannabis that are on fentanyl. The Chinese cartels are taking over this business. In the meantime, while you guys are trying to get a piece of the pie, the Chinese cartels are our biggest enemy. So look at testing. You know, Red Wing's a great city. I mean, I moved here. It's got a great name, Red Wing Shoe. It's a great name. When you talk of Red Wing, don't taint it with cannabis. Do testing, because testing, the whole testing market out there in America is messed up. If I want to pay a little extra money, I can get a better lab result. With the city owning that and the native tribes, you can put some, you know, people are going to come there to test. And not only that, they can test hemp. And the other thing is you got federal legalization right down the line. You're not going to compete against these $2 billion companies. These multi-state operators are going to tear you guys up. Free cannabis to patients. That's another thing you could do. You could test that. I want to give cannabis to patients. Let them test it. You guys could test it and give that to cancer patients. And the fact that you want to take 50% of the profits for the native tribe, come on, when are we going to get done in America and stop taking money from the tribe? 50% for a building that you own? That's absurd. It just, I don't know, it just, don't take the money from the tribe. Take that 50%, take 25% of that and educate the natives so they can hang on to that money so they have generational wealth instead of being on fentanyl on the tribe, on the reservation. So anyway, I'm here to plant the seed today. Let's look at testing. We need it. The whole industry doesn't even happen until we get testing.
Sir, you're at 3 minutes.
All right, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And also thanks for doing this, getting the ordinance approved in time before the end of the year, so social equity has to stay together as well.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for the public hearing?
Hi, I'm Ruth Greenslade. My address is 825 Wilkie Street in Red Wing, Minnesota. I just wanted to speak in support of this ordinance and in support of protecting the public's health. I think local government and elected officials are together committed to ensuring the safety of our communities. We want to promote the opportunity for individuals over 21 to make a responsible choice about their use of cannabis for recreational reasons, medical purposes. We want to support local businesses. And it's also important to recognize that many people, local decision makers, may not have a full understanding of the new cannabis products that are already for sale or will be for sale next year. And we have a responsibility to create guidance for local business owners as they expand their product offerings with the goal of individuals using cannabis safely and responsibly and youth choosing to stay substance-free. We want to protect youth and also people in recovery. So currently we have some protections in our tobacco retail ordinance, and we don't have any of that in place for cannabis sales. Really, that's the purpose of doing an ordinance, to adopt an ordinance that protects the public health, prevents easy access for cannabis for youth, and ensures fairness with our similar common sense limits that we have for tobacco. And I do want to read that the United States Surgeon General has issued an advisory to alert the public to the known and potential harms to developing brains posed by the increasing availability of highly potent marijuana in multiple concentrated forms, and the reasons for concern with the increasing use of marijuana by pregnant women, adolescents, and youth. So I just appreciate that we're taking this opportunity to be proactive and mitigate the threat to the exposure young people have with this new legalized product. And there may be opportunities to strengthen this ordinance as we learn more as the rules are finalized. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this issue? Come on up.
My name is Wayne Otto, 30042 County 2 Boulevard, out by Frontenac. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, ever come to a meeting like this. I'm a former health education teacher, physical education teacher, coach, football coach, wrestling coach, all that stuff. And I have a brother that is 5 years older than me that is a drug addict. It all started with a little beer, a little pot. Pot back in the 60s and 70s and 80s is nothing like they're creating today. Yeah, sorry, I thought it was just loud enough, being a coach. Anyway, this is personal for me. I don't understand what's going on here, why we want to invite this stuff into our community. I don't care all the safeguards that we do. Some people brought up some good points already. But why do we want to bring in stuff into our community that makes our public even that more dumb? There is nothing beneficial to inviting another drug into our community. You're going to have problems in your high schools just because it's legalized and just because we say, hey, the 21-year-olds can't get it. If you don't think the kids in high school are going to get it, which they already are, they're doing it illegally, you're sadly mistaken. I don't know really what this whole thing is in regards to an ordinance and all this other stuff, but I saw that there was going to be a meeting about cannabis here, bringing it into our community. And so I came here to kind of find out more what's going on so I could go home and discuss it with my wife. But my wife and I moved back here she's from Red Wing. We moved back here in 2012 to take care of her parents and her grandparents as they became older and ill. And I've seen this community change a lot. I'm not from here, but every day I have to drive in on the east end of town by the Quick Trip, 58, and I see this community changing a lot. So let's bring in more problems. Why? So we can have more tax dollars. What a great idea. Let's bring more problems into our communities. So I guess I didn't come here with a notebook full of stats and information. I wrote down some stuff. But I just feel that you people need to really think hard and honestly, just because it's legal, what do you want your community to look like? You want your community to look like downtown Minneapolis, downtown St. Paul? I'm still coaching. I'm a retired teacher, but I still coach up in St. Paul, and I drive down to St. Paul. And that's our state capital. It's disgusting. Alcohol, drugs, you name it. Theft and crime. So what do we want? What is this all about? We want to try and make it, oh yeah, we're going to bring in a community, but we're going to make it really safe. That's all BS, and you guys know it. There's no way to make garbage like this safe. So my point is...
Sir, you're at 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I just think you need to talk long and hard about what you're actually thinking about doing and why you're doing it.
Thank you, Wade. Anyone else wish to speak? I'll make this my second call. Anyone else wish to speak? And this will be my third. Anyone else wish to speak?
I did receive one comment via email, so I'll just read it.
Thank
This
you.
is from J. Hill, 882 Aurora Circle, Red Wing, Minnesota. He writes, Friday, October 11th, he emailed me saying, thanks for all the work in creating the ordinance. I do have one concern with the first requirement. He quotes, no one is allowed to use cannabis flower, cannabis products, lower potency hemp edibles, or hemp-derived consumer products in a public place or a place of public accommodation unless it's an establishment or event permitted to have on-site use. Then he's speaking here saying, I feel the restrictions are too broad and will force local businesses into an either-or situation. Either I, as business owner, allow smoking of cannabis products, or I restrict all. I am sure there are several businesses that would like to allow the selling and use of THC drinks and edibles, but do not want to allow the smoking of those same products. I could be wrong in my interpretation, but just wanted to express my opinion.
All right. Thank you. We've called for 3 times. Can we close the meeting?
Close public comment.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Stacy, was somebody online trying to?
Oh, you're right. How do we see that?
Just ask, you can reopen
Is
it.
there anyone online that would like to speak on the public hearing? I know we've closed it, but we would reopen it if someone would like to. Any comments from the public online? Third time, any comments from the public online? Thank you.
Just a comment, and to your point, I don't think anybody up here asked for this. You know, it's the state that allowed it, put some restrictions on it. We're trying to put some guardrails on it as best we can within the confines of statute 342. So none of us thought this was going to be a tax win or anything like that. None of us are probably pro this at all. I speak for myself, I'm not. But we got handed this, and we got to put the guardrails around it, and that's what we're doing. That's really what we're doing.
I'll just,
I think I need to do something with my voice. So that's just a comment I had.
Okay, any other comments?
and as I understand it, Samantha, and you can maybe clear this up, I think that the state has required that counties approve one business that's selling cannabis for every 12,500 people, which would mean 4 in Goodhue County. If cities like the city of Red Wing choose to do it, that would count against the 4 we would be required to permit. Is that all correct?
Correct. So the state has said that every county must and municipality must allow 1 per 12,500 population.
Right, right.
That means once you hit 12,501 people, you are required to allow 2 cannabis retail businesses.
Right.
If the city of Red Wing were to open a municipal dispensary, which I understand they are not interested in, but this is just an example, that municipal one would not count towards one of those 4 that Goodhue County must allow.
Nor does the Native American dispensary count towards the 4.
So we can discuss that because right now in the Office of Cannabis Management's draft rules, it says that counties and municipalities may count tribal dispensaries as one of the 1 that's allowed. When I checked with the Office of Cannabis Management, they did acknowledge that that is in their draft rules. However, that is subject to change because those rules are not finalized yet. In our ordinance, we do have that the tribal dispensary does not count toward as one of those. So if that rule gets passed as it's written, that would be something that this body would need to, if they chose, come back and could amend that portion of the ordinance saying the tribal one does count as one of those 4.
If it did get approved by the state,
Right.
we would have to change ours because we can't be less restrictive than the state on
So it
our
says
ordinance.
the local government may count it, so not that you shall.
Okay, all right.
And another question, I believe the city of Red Wing is wanting to, I don't know what the right legal term is, but they want to approve for within the city. Have any other of the cities in Goodhue County or townships wanted to take that role on?
As far as not delegating
Yes,
approval to.
not delegating to us.
Pine Island has decided not to delegate to Goodhue County.
Okay.
All of the other cities that I have spoken to have indicated they would be sending delegation agreements to the county. Those are due back to my office by November 27th for board action in December.
And assumptions are always dangerous, but one would assume that if cities are choosing not to delegate, that they intend to have one in their community, because I think, well, at least Red Wing would be required to because of their size.
Right, so, this all gets very complicated. So if a city chooses not to delegate to the county, then they are responsible for the compliance checks, for the permitting
Right.
of that. And then they may allow more retail operations than the 4 that are allowed in Goodhue County.
Right.
So,
But it wouldn't allow them to prevent one from going to Pine Island because they would have to accept one, or we would on their behalf, I believe.
So if Goodhue County were to get 4 cannabis retail businesses,
Right.
Pine Island could, or Red Wing, who
Right.
do not delegate to us, could say, the county has reached its maximum number, we are not going to permit one. However, they could do the opposite. They could say, even though Goodhue County has reached its number of 4, we did not delegate to the county, we will
Right.
open one. Now Goodhue County has 5,
Mm-hmm.
6. That's the way around that number.
I understand that. And then I think it's fair to say that Goodhue County has not looked into doing a dispensary that we're part of. I think the city of Red Wing was looking at that. And it sounds like they've decided, at least your understanding, that they're not going to do that.
Correct, yes. Goodhue County has not looked into doing any sort of county-owned dispensary or anything like that. Yeah, I'm not going to speak for the city of Red Wing, but I know that they are not, they've been discussing it at their meetings. I'll say that the cannabis overall, so anybody who's interested in that, I would encourage them to reach out to the city or
Correct.
attend their council meetings.
Right. And Prairie Island, I believe, has one open.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Linda?
Sam, I did ask you this by email, but this had to do with Section 4 temporary cannabis events. The license or permit required for a temporary cannabis event. And a license to be issued by the county. Events with 500 or more attendees shall follow permitting procedures. So that one caught me a bit off guard. 500 people enjoying a cannabis event. So I was curious as to, well, one, where that number came from and whether or not we have more details on that.
Sure. So the number of 500 is what is found in our Goodhue County Assembly's control ordinance. So that's why in that section 4.11, it says they must follow the county's assembly controls ordinance. If you are going to have a party with 500 or more of your closest friends, you must get a permit from the county through, and it works through my office as land use management, but we're also working with the sheriff's office, with Public Works as far as access, and that permit does need to be approved by the county board. So you need to know that you're having this assembly well ahead of time so that we can have it approved by this body and not just come up with an idea for this weekend or something like that. So that's where that 500 number came from, is from our assembly controls ordinance.
So it wouldn't be any different necessarily for an event with 500 or more attendees at a wedding versus 500 attendees that are going to have an outside cannabis event?
Right. The difference would be that for your cannabis event, you also must have proper state licenses and approvals for that. And somebody who has an endorsement or a license to host a cannabis event must apply for that license with the state, and they check everything out. They check out who's going to be there selling goods and services. What is the layout of your event? There has to be like a fenced off area and things like that, security, all of that kind of stuff. The state is checking that. And then through our assembly's ordinance, we would also be checking that to say you need security, checking even things as small, the number of bathrooms that are there and things like that. The state's, let's see, Office of Cannabis Management guidance has said that counties can limit where these events happen. But their guidance was limiting it to places like the county fairgrounds. And I'm not certain that the county fair would be interested in allowing such a thing. So we did not include that provision in this draft ordinance. But that was one thing it was an option from the state to limit the location of these potential cannabis events.
Thank you. My other question was, with the added responsibilities that this requires, does your office have the capacity to enforce it, to regulate it?
And so it's really going to depend how many of these applications we get at one time. If, 4 applications come in for cannabis businesses, and my office as land use will also be looking at the growing of it, the manufacturing, all of the gamut of cannabis businesses, not just the retail side. If we get, several applications at once, yes, it's going to be time consuming for staff, but the state has also been very clear that if you want to open a cannabis business, you need to be reaching out to your local government as soon as possible, because there is that 30-day window for local governments to make a decision. Now, if somebody needs a conditional use permit, and obviously that 30-day window, it's not, most likely would not be approved within that 30 days. I believe that the state has said you have the time to approve that conditional use permit and things like that. But people will need to have patience in working with the staff that we do have available. And the other part is it's not just on myself as land use, it's also on our finance and taxpayer services as far as getting registrations for these lower potency hemp edible locations is going to be, mostly on our finance and taxpayer services. Doing age verification checks is going to be on our sheriff's office. So we're all sharing the burden, but we all understand that we need to work in a timely manner as far as how the state has laid out our 30-day timeline, but we also ask for applicants to be working with us sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions, Brad?
Just a couple comments. Once, if we approve this as it states here, you're going to go back, you're going to look at our zoning ordinance, probably the assembly ordinance, and see how that lines up with whatever the state comes up with in their final rules. And we're going to have to make adjustments to our zoning ordinance that will match what we're saying in this ordinance, which they don't.
Correct.
So that's step 2. In here, first, we're not giving a license to anybody. We're just acknowledging that their application meets our regulations. That
Right.
goes to the state, and the state issues the license.
Correct. State issues licenses, counties issue registrations.
And that will come before the county board for each application. And it's either, A, it's complete, and it meets our ordinance, and consequently, whatever we do with the zoning ordinance also. And if it meets those two, there's not really any ability to put conditions or change location or anything with it. It's either it meets it or it doesn't meet it.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Just so we're clear, this is just piece 1. There's piece 2 coming later, which has to be kind of expedited also.
So I just have a question, because I don't understand it, and I don't think it has to do with this ordinance, but when I think about alcohol, there's liquor stores that you get alcohol, there's the restaurants, and then there's all kinds of venues, wedding venues, other venues, and this is not addressing any of that. Is that correct? This is addressing that there'll be up to 4 places that it can be sold, but it's not talking about can wedding venues have cannabis, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
So it's talking about, and it kind of goes in line with the state rules of if you want to allow the use of cannabis at your wedding venue, you would need to get proper state licensure for that to have a business where people can use cannabis.
So that would be a state decision.
Right, and then you would get a permit from my land use office, just saying that, yes, this is okay, because I would need to make sure you meet those buffer setbacks from things like schools and things like that.
And Commissioner, just as the ordinance reads now in that section 7, it does prohibit the use of
That's what I thought.
cannabis products in public places and places of public accommodation. So in your example, those venues would not be allowed, they could not allow the use
Okay.
without the licensure from the state of Minnesota first.
And if they had that licensure, would they count as one of the 4?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you so much for all the work you've
One
done.
question in the audience, if you're wanting to take audience questions.
Already.
Sir,
Yep. Yep.
sir, you gotta, if you're gonna talk, you gotta go to a microphone.
Come up. It's not on, your mic isn't on. On the back. Bottom.
All right, so what I understand, you guys can limit it, like Rochester has a capability of having 14 licenses in Olmsted County and 10 in Rochester. So if you just limit it to, you're only going to allow 1 per 12,500, which is the state says, then you don't have Thailand with 25 dispensaries every 1,000 feet, you know, because if you don't limit it, then you run into that. So I would recommend limiting it to 1 per 12,500.
We can't go less than that.
Right.
So we have limited.
So what I look at.
But the city of Red Wing, if they're not delegating to us, can also set a limit and do what they want in Red Wing, outside of what we regulate.
From what I understand, in the county, though, you can limit it for the county. So if the county says 1 per 12,000 in the county, then Red Wing can, if you get 3 licenses, then Red Wing doesn't have an option. You following me?
That's not right. They can independently have their own option, that if they don't delegate that responsibility to us.
So it doesn't hurt to limit it in the county
Yeah.
to no more than 1 per 12,500. What I understand, that's 3.8, but I don't have the current population, so.
All right, thank you, Jeff. All right, a motion?
Motion to close, we did that once. You want it again?
Yes.
We'll do it again. I'll move
We'll
to
do-
close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion is, or meeting is closed. All right, what are our wishes?
Against my feelings, I move to approve the ordinance. I'm not in favor of this at all, but I know it came down to us. We have to deal with it. This is what I think they've done a really good job of doing it.
We're
and
required to follow the state law,
Yep,
which is what we're
required to do
doing.
that. I think we took an
And-
oath to do that, so.
And I believe this ordinance is as restrictive as we're allowed to be. We aren't allowed to be more restrictive than this, so I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion carried.
And
Thank you, everyone, for all
just
the
a-
work you've done.
Just a question, Sam. So from your office, from the Office of Land Use, your timeline to get to the zoning ordinance and look at that, get it to the Planning Commission and back to us, end of November? Early December?
To get it to the county board for approval, December.
And will you look at the assembly ordinance at the same time?
I will write that down for them to look at.
And thank you for your service to Goodhue
Thank you.
County.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, Human Resources. Our department.
Thank you for joining us for Plat Appreciation Week.
All right, hey, you did well.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, at the September 17th Committee of the Whole, members of the Retention Committee gave you an update on their progress and talked about a number of different items that they were working on. While many of these are still a work in progress, the committee wanted to come forward with what they feel is a fairly easy request. They're asking to move forward with making changes to the Employee Service Awards as well as fully funding the Employee Committee. The service awards have not changed in over 25 years. The Retention Committee is requesting to increase the amount of the awards, add a tier for 5 years of service, and make the awards directly monetary instead of chamber or Wild Wings bucks. In addition, service award recipients would be awarded 8 hours of vacation time to use it or lose it. These changes would be retroactive to the beginning of this year, 2024. The Retention Committee is also asking that the Employee Committee be fully funded to the amount of $10,000 annually. The Employee Committee is the group that puts on our summer picnic, the winter event where all these awards are presented. They also provide the retirement cakes and flowers for funerals if there's a death in an employee's family. In the past, this group was largely self-funded, but many of their revenue streams have dried up. Commissioner Flanders, you asked a question this week about the difference in the monetary amount that they had asked for. They had originally asked for $6,500 to fully fund them this year. The Retention Committee had met and felt that that wasn't quite enough, and so they had moved it up to, their consensus was to move it up to $10,000. So there was a bit of confusion in the presentation, in the Committee of Whole presentation. There was $6,500 on one slide and there was $10,000 on the other slide. So to wrap up, the Retention Committee is seeking a resolution to support these changes, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I'll just make one comment. At the last meeting, we discussed quite a bit if we thought this should go back to January 1st, 2024. And it really was a consensus, including of Linda and myself, that we should, because this money was set aside for 2024. And so I think that the group was pretty much in a unanimous agreement that we should go back to January 1st, 2024, and to carry these changes going forward. You agree with that, Linda?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd make a motion, that resolution that we approve the request as presented to us today.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion?
So I just have one question. The last line right ahead of the recommendation. Tell me what that means.
So the budgeted amount that would come out of the budget for the increase in the awards and the budgeting for the committee would be over $16,000. Then if we place a value, a non-budgeted amount, but a value on the vacation time that these recipients would receive would be approximately $15,500.
And that's not a cost. That's not we're not gonna write a check to somebody for that.
We are not writing a check for that.
Okay, just so I'm clear. It's really the $16,000.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Linda?
So moving forward, I don't necessarily know if this was planning to be considered taking money from the general fund to pay for it, but perhaps moving forward, we ought to make sure that it's a line item in the budget because it's going to be a cost every year.
This is coming out of the retention fund that we approved? That's where this is coming out?
Yes, for this money, yes.
Oh.
But moving forward, that type of fund as a budget
Chair,
item.
if I could just maybe help clarify. What I think Linda's trying to say is anything that's going to be a continued ongoing annual expense that we'd incorporate in that into the regular budgeting process.
Thank you.
And into the levy, but not, yeah.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, so, hello, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thank you so much. Pleasure to be up here. This is my first time up here, so very excited. Yeah, at least I dressed well, right? It's fall when we're wearing flannel. So as you know, in May 2024, Lisa Henney, the Goodhue County Land Use Management Director, retired and provided recommendations on how the Land Use Management Department should move forward. In a September meeting, Human Resources provided options on ways to move forward, including Ms. Hanney's recommendation as well. Currently, the department is running as 2 co-directors with the Deputy County Surveyor and a Planning Zoning Administrator, for which the current Planning Zoning Administrator will be leaving as of November 7th. And this report will provide all those options that were given in the September meeting, with one caveat as option 1B. So all those options remain unchanged other than option 1, which provided an additional option there. So going forward with the options, we have the maintain status quo, which results in backfilling the Land Use Management Director position as it was previously. And then option 1 being the 2 department head structure, which was Ms. Hanney's recommendation and seemed to have board consensus during the last meeting. Closer look at that, that would entail having a land use management director and a county surveyor, as well as in terms of the option 1B, the change there only being having a land use management director or county surveyor, and instead of backfilling the current planning and zoning administrator's position, backfilling instead as a zoning assistant, reducing that overall cost. Again, option 1 seemed to have the most consensus during the previous board meeting, and with that being said, options 2 through 4 did not, and we asked that moving forward, move forward with the board's opinions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Jeff, whoever you are, Brad.
The guy who doesn't speak into the microphone? Well, I supported option 1 in the beginning. I think we've always had working directors. They always need to have that. We've always supported that. And in the current situation with our surveyor who's overseeing that side of it with GIS and all of that, it is a working director. And I think option 1B of hiring that land use management director and tying it with planning and zoning will give us a good, a better look at a candidate that will fit in there than just a manager over those departments without having a focus of a working area. So I support item 1B, option 1B, and I would move that forward. And we need to get this done because we have to advertise for a position. And until we make this decision, we don't have a position to advertise. So.
Susan?
I agree with Brad. I think option 1B is the best choice. You mentioned that the zoning assistant would be.
Chair, we should probably get a second on the motion before we move to discussion.
Okay, I'll second it. And I think it was Samantha's suggestion that the zoning assistant would be the appropriate level for the second person. So I think what we're trying to do is match the employees with what we actually need. It happens to save a little bit of money, but I think the intent is to have the right match. But I am curious as what's the difference roughly? Is it like $20,000 a year or something like that?
So based on it, it would reduce it from gray. Let me pull my sheet here. I believe it averages to about $10 an hour difference there.
So about $20,000 a year, yeah.
There, I'd have to.
Thank you.
Any other Comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance and Taxpayer Services, Mr. Dowling.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning. So my item this morning is related to the reappointment of the county assessor. According to the Minnesota statute 273.061, it requires the appointment of all county assessors on a 4-year term. For this specific position, it's actually a statewide requirement. All the counties should be going through and either appointing a new or reappointing their county assessors at this time frame. As I said, so the entire state follows the same exact dates for this 4-year appointment. So the current term expires on December 31st, 2024, with a new term beginning on January 1st. And upon approval by the county board, then the Commissioner of Revenue goes through their process to verify and double check all the information for these appointees to have them confirm that appointment. So Ms. LaVon Viets Augustine has been employed with Goodhue County for over 29 years. She started out in the Planning and Zoning Department before becoming an appraiser in 2004. She was initially appointed as assessor on May 16th, 2019, and currently holds the Senior Accredited Minnesota Assessor License, which is the highest assessing license in Minnesota. That license is also required in order to become an assessor in the state of Minnesota. So my recommendation here is to reappoint Ms. LaVon Viets Augustine as the Goodhue County Assessor for this term.
Move approval.
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Just a comment, LaVon and I go back a long ways, because I was a clerk in 2000 when she was working in the land use office, and we were butting heads sometimes over zoning issues, and now being an assessor, she does a fabulous job. It's a hard job. It's hard to convince the public that you're just fulfilling state duties, and that's really what we are. So I wholeheartedly support this.
I support it too, because I've been in her office and seen people just say, oh yeah, county just wants all the taxes, but she's really worked hard to be fair to our taxpayers, so I do definitely appreciate that part of it too, so. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Administration.
Yes, Chair, the first thing I want to do is thank Sam Perrett for her years of service to Goodhue County residents. But secondly, with her recent resignation, we needed to move forward with finding an interim planning and zoning administrator and interim land use management director. We've looked at different options, and staff's recommendation is to contract with Megan Smith with Every River LLC, Land Use Consulting and Development. She's the former Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Lake City and brings a good level of governmental background. She also served with at least one other Minnesota city. So staff's recommendation is to approve the contract before you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a time frame on that contract?
We've got it set up where it's a minimum of 3 months. We, obviously with hiring process, you just never know if they're going to go great or not go great. So I left it open-ended so we could go past 3 if we need to.
So what is Every River LLC? Is that company, one person, 2 people?
I don't know the whole corporate structure, but I know it's mostly her. In land development is what she's doing on the side.
So this is her own business that she just started after she resigned from the city of Lake City?
Correct.
Okay. And she is expected to be the manager in that department and working here out of the Goodhue County building 40 hours a week?
That's correct.
Is the plan and the intention of it?
Yep.
Okay.
It's not just like any of our other employees. If there's time where they need to work outside of the building, they need to work that out with their supervisor. But the intent is that the person is largely here.
And we're doing planning and zoning, plus she's going to be expected to be the manager of the other departments, building and health.
Yes.
Okay?
Assuming there will be some guidance from our administrator also.
Absolutely.
I'd move approval.
A motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is, for your information. How about new and old business?
Just a comment. After our last meeting and when we talked about the juvenile detention center and we really never got to a firm answer, wanted more information, whatever, I've had conversations with Rhonda and Sheriff Kelly about that, and I think we should bring that back up at the next meeting. And I think we should give clear direction. And quite frankly, after what I've learned in the last couple, 3 weeks, I don't even think we should go forward with it. I think we should just say no right now. We should talk about contracting for some juvenile detention beds so that we have a place, so it's not so hard to find a place. And we have that opportunity, I think, happening because Houston County just opened theirs, and we could probably do that. And yes, it's a cost, but in the long run, I think we're probably always going to need a bed or two. And if we contract, then we're assured we have a bed or two. And I think we should come back and talk about that and give some clear direction. Because in the meetings I was in this last week, talking with commissioners around the state, it's not an easy task to do that, and it's not, and we really don't know where the courts are going on it. So I think that method, at least if we contract, it's for a set period of time, we know what the cost is, we're out of it when we're done with the contract, if they change their mind on how they deal with it. So I would like to bring it back up at the next, have a discussion at the next meeting.
I agree with you 100% that I would, exactly what you want to do. So if you want to have a discussion at a meeting, we can, or if there's other commissioners that feel the same way, we can just give them direction right now.
It's not on the agenda, so I think we really need to talk about it because we really need to talk about the contracting piece at the same time, which I think is different than just saying, don't spend any time working on juvenile detention in our facility. That, I think we need to pair the two together. That's why I say we should bring it up at the next meeting.
So we giving them direction to come back to us with contracting options that they can discuss at the next meeting? We maybe need to give them direction to bring us options for outside contracting for a bed so that we can make that decision at that meeting.
We could ask for that. I don't know if they can get it that fast, but we could ask for
Well, they can
that.
come back to us when they can get it, so.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Just
give
think
it
it needs-
direction
I
to the
just think
county
it needs to come
administrator to
back.
move forward with that, to get us information to bring back to the meeting when it's available, so.
I'm hearing you.
Right?
I wasn't speaking directly into Mike, hopefully you still heard me.
I think I turned to the side, so.
Any other new or old business or committee reports? How about should we pay our bills?
Move approval, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on them? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. 10:30, look at that.
That's very well done.
Let's give it 5 minutes.